Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the secret world of money laundering. You know, that whole shadowy process that takes dirty, illegal profits and turns them into squeaky clean, spendable cash.
Okay, so let's start with a little thought experiment. Picture this. You've just pulled off a major crime, and now you're staring at a mountain of cash. You'd think the hard part's over, right? Well, not even close. Turns out, a criminal's biggest nightmare isn't making the money. It's figuring out how to use it without basically handing the cops a roadmap to your front door.
And that's where money laundering comes in. It's the whole magic trick, really. It's all about taking that dirty money, the cash from illegal activities, and running it through this crazy maze of transactions. And what's the point of all this? It's simple, really, to wash it so clean that it looks like it came from a totally legit business.
So, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the criminal's big problem, then get into the three-step wash cycle they use. We'll look at how they turn dirty cash clean, and finally, check out the global dragnet trying to shut it all down.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the criminal's dilemma.
So the core issue is, well, it's pretty straightforward. Huge stacks of illegal cash are basically a giant flashing neon sign pointing right back to the crime. I mean, you can't just walk into a dealership and buy a luxury car with a duffel bag full of bills, right? That's going to raise some eyebrows. But the problem goes way deeper than just one person getting caught. Once that dirty money gets cleaned, it gets pumped right back into the system to fund more crime, to corrupt officials, and that kind of thing can seriously harm the whole of society.
Okay, so how do they get around this? Well, it pretty much all boils down to a classic three-step process. This is the playbook, the backbone of almost every money laundering scheme out there.
And yeah, looking at this, you can see how complicated these operations can get. It looks like a crazy spider web of transactions. But don't worry about all the little details. It really just comes down to three main stages. The easiest way to think about it is, well, like an actual laundromat. Step 1 is placement. This is where you physically get the dirty cash into the financial system. Think of it as loading the dirty clothes into the washing machine. Step 2 is layering. This is the real wash cycle. The money gets bounced around through a whole bunch of complex transactions. We're talking buying and selling stocks, real estate, moving it between shell companies across different countries, anything to make the trail impossible to follow. And finally, step 3 is integration. The money, now squeaky clean, is brought back into the regular economy, looking totally legit and ready to be spent.
Okay, now for the really fascinating part. Let's look at the actual methods criminals use to pull this whole thing off. It's a wild mix of old-school tricks and some seriously high-tech stuff.
I mean, the toolkit these guys have is pretty vast and creative. You've got smurfing, which is a great name. It's basically breaking up a huge amount of cash into lots of small deposits so they don't trigger any alarms. Then there are shell companies, fake businesses that exist only on paper, perfect for funneling money through. They even use these ancient informal banking systems like Hawala, which operate entirely on trust and leave almost no paper trail. And it doesn't stop there. They'll inflate invoices in international trade, making it look like they paid way more for goods than they actually did.
And you've got to understand, this is a constantly evolving game. Today, the big new frontier is digital assets. Cryptocurrencies have opened up a whole new playground for launderers. It's fast, it can be anonymous, and frankly, it's a huge headache for law enforcement.
But the authorities aren't just sitting back and watching this happen. Nope, there's a massive global effort, a dragnet if you will, being cast to try and stop this flow of dirty money. And it's all built on a framework of laws.
This fight is really happening on two levels. You've got the international level, led by a group called the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF for short. They're the ones setting the global rules of the game. And then you have individual countries taking those rules and turning them into their own laws. A perfect example is what you see here. Thailand's main weapon in this fight is the Anti-Money Laundering Act, which dates back to 1999.
So, in Thailand, the whole law is built around something called predicate offenses. It sounds complicated, but it's not. It just means there's a specific list of crimes, 26 of them, in fact. And if your money comes from any one of those crimes, whether it's drug trafficking or corruption, then boom, it's automatically targeted by these really strict anti-laundering laws.
And here's the most important takeaway. The whole point of these laws isn't just about putting a few bad guys in jail. The real goal is so much bigger than that. It's about making crime unprofitable. Think about it. If you can seize the money, you literally disrupt the entire criminal enterprise. You're not just catching the criminals, you're cutting off the fuel that keeps their whole operation running.
And this really gets to the heart of the challenge today. I mean, the laws we've been talking about, many of them were written for a world of cash and briefcases.
But today's battlefield, it's completely different. We're talking about complex digital transactions that can bounce around the entire globe in the blink of an eye.
So that leaves us with a pretty big critical question, doesn't it? In this world where technology is changing faster than ever, we're watching this constant cat-and-mouse game. You've got the criminals on one side, always finding new, clever ways to wash their money, and the regulators on the other, always trying to catch up. And the big question hanging over all of this is, can the law actually move fast enough to keep pace?